Alrighty. Every tabletop role-playing game starts with you, whether you wish to be a stalwart protector of the Zwei or a berserking delivery boy of the Devyat. A certain fixer's urban nightmare has rules to cover all the major associations, from officers, fingers, syndicates, and more. For the time being though, the big fixer associations are what make up the main classes and inform you of your playstyle in both roleplay and combat. Full disclosure though, this is a combat-forward TTRPG, meaning there's not too much in the way of forced roleplay, but you can flavor things as you see fit, and it is encouraged to play your character to your role and personality, all things considered. Without further ado, last week teased how checks and draws are made. This week's developer diary for a certain fixer's urban nightmare will go over character creation. We'll be including a character sheet in the description as well for you to follow along if you'd like. All of the database items, skills, class information, and whatnot are included with the sheets to browse, as well as plenty of customization to your liking. Anyhow, let's get into the character creation process. First off, go grab the character sheets in the video's description and open it in your browser. Go make a copy of it for your own use. The first thing you should do is delete the Neko arc and replace it with a portrait to represent your fixer. This should give you something of a foundation to go by. Else you can leave it blank and come back to it later. Second, give your fixer a name. It can be your own name or any name really, just something to go by. The city is an exceedingly multicultural melting pot, thus this is the one time anything goes. Just don't give your dealer a headache and I reckon you'll be solid. Next is picking your class. This TTRPG has a total of 9 classes with multiple nested playstyles within. To give a brief overview of each, the Zwei fixers are known for protection and escort duty. Their focus is on defense and typically tanking for the party. With many ways to intervene and interject into clashes, the Zwei are some of the very best at soaking damage and punishing those that wish harm upon their client. The Tress. The engineering sort. They deal with all things workshop related, whether it be reviewing weapons, charging taxes for them, filing applications to the head, or the usual workings of bureaucracy. Reminder that it's illegal to use workshop gear not approved by the Tress. That said, within this system, they are generally support players using components to augment allies' equipment. Beyond that, they can still fend for themselves when push comes to shove. The She. Covert assassination experts. They care not who the client or the target is. If someone wants someone else dead, they're gonna be the ones to do it. These fellas are typically glass cannons with high singular strike damage and abuse stealth to make a getaway after the deed is done. The Sync. They concern themselves with more public affairs. That being duels. Sync fixers are speedy duelists that fight on their client's behalf, either forcing their opponent to yield or otherwise executing them when appropriate. Within a party, sync fixers tend to be excellent clashers and flankers, isolating opponents and forcing them into a quick duel to the death. The Lu are a bunch of spirited fixers geared to handle group engagements. They specialize in handling multiple foes at once, using flame-wreathed weaponry to spread wildfire throughout the opposing side. Typically, Lu fixers in the system are the AoE experts in the party, able to hose down entire enemy formations in a deluge of status effects. The 7 are your private eye investigators, keeping up with all the connections and happenings of the city. They specialize in gathering intelligence and utilizing it to gain major advantages in the field. This association's fixers are fantastic at investigating and deducing cases, solving them and closing them accordingly. Within a party, the 7 acts as tacticians and strategists, able to manipulate cards and draws. The Devyat make use of large preservation trunks with inbuilt low-level AI to make speedy and express deliveries. While they can call on the trunk to massively buff their capabilities, the longer they waste in the field without making their deliveries, the more power the trunk consumes, and eventually the likelier the trunk will kill off the courier for abusing its power. Devyat players in this system are the speedy berserkers in a party. They act as line breakers that utilize their burst power and speed to pierce through and functionally perform as cavalry. The Diechi are dedicated scholars with an endless thirst for knowledge. By consuming the knowledge they have accumulated, they can gain temporary access to huge swaths of physical strength and capabilities. Often, these fixers are seen using their fists or large keys to brute force rush down their opponents at the expense of knowledge. The Diechi players use far more specialized builds, relying on deck and stat manipulation to get ahead and pummel their opponents. The Ufi are contract executors. They ensure contracts and dealings around the city are properly officiated and upheld, specializing in overseeing, mediating, and punishing those who have failed to comply to contract regulations. Anything signed off on by an Ufi is a done deal. Players that select this class can expect a control playstyle, layering rules and forcing the enemy to break them. As these breaches of ruling accumulates, Ufi is able to punish such far more brutally, giving them a stranglehold style during combat. If any of those class fantasies appeal to you, go ahead and select your class from the drop-down menu. It'll automate some parts of your sheets related to such as well, like the class's skills. Next, we're looking at assigning stats. These govern how well you can perform certain tasks, as well as a lot of your functionality when it comes to combat. There's two different types of stats broken down into base stats used for checks and derived stats used for combat. Base stats are further split down into physical and mental stats, so let's get to those first. Of the first group, we start with physicality. This governs tasks that require resistance, endurance, and power. Typical usage involves athletic movements, lifting heavy objects, pushing, and pulling. For every point you put into this stat, you can deadlift to 30 kilograms. The next base stat is finesse. This regards delicacy, control, and stability. Typical usage involves intricate movements, sleight of hand, stealth, precision, and agility. Following finesse is the last physical group-based stat, that being speed. This one is raw velocity and displacement, more explosive rather than controlled movements, something of your max speed. Typical usage involves acceleration, bursts of speed, and reckless abandon. More importantly, this stat governs how many tiles you can move during combat when shifting. The second group starts with intuition. This is deduction, perception, and comprehension. Typical usage involves reading a room, empathy, detecting lies, intuiting mental problems. In combat, this is utilized to deduce enemy attack targeting and deciphering enemy passives. Willpower follows along next. This regards mental stability, spirits, and persistence. Typical usage involves enduring critique, pain tolerance, second winds, and breaking of limits. During combat, this helps you resist mental attacks and increases your limits. Last stat of concern is luck. This governs fate, destiny, and randomness. Typical usage involves gambling, relying on chance, and leaving things in the hands of the universe. When it comes to combat, this is directly translated to critical damage. For all of these stats, we are looking to assign a value of 3 in 3 of them, 2 in 2 of them, and 1 in the remainder, making for the 3-2-1 system of base stats. Pick the stats you expect to be utilizing the most for checks and give those 3s. Then prioritize things you'd like to be okay at for 2s. And finally, put a 1 in your character's weakness. Now, if you're using the provided character sheet, it should do all the math for you and spit out your derived stats on your character sheet too, these being the stats most important for combat. To go over them in brief for now, wounds are the number of times you can take direct damage before dying. Everyone starts with 3 wounds, and more is gained by ranking up to specific grades. Chain is the maximum number of links usable within phases of a turn. You start with just 1, and it grows with grade like wounds. Combat skill is your ability to fight, so this informs both your damage and clashing power. This stat is calculated by adding together your physicality and finesse. Next is posture. This is your ability to withstand damage and still retain form. Your posture takes damage first before you are staggered or take a wound, and recovers back to full at the end of a turn. This stat is calculated by adding together your physicality and willpower. Beyond there is defense. This is your ability to absorb, redirect, and otherwise evade damage. This is calculated by adding together your speed and intuition. Following is size, which will pretty much always be 1 for the player. If you're playing some kind of giant, speak to your dealer about going to size 2. This stat is how many grid squares you take up during combat. Initiative is beyond there, and is how quickly you act in combat. It's a range that starts with your finesse and maxes out at your finesse added to your speed. During combat, you are able to go up this range by sacrificing an equivalent amount of posture. Last is limits. This is the main thing that will hold most players' stats back initially, at least in terms of derived stats. Limits is the cap of your derived stats. Your derived stats cannot exceed your limit stat. This is equal to your level plus willpower. At Fixer grade 9, you are level 1. If you have 2 willpower on top of that, you are now at 3 limits. This means even if you have 3 physicality and 3 finesse, your combat skill will still only be 3 instead of 6. There's many ways of increasing limits, including via equipment and during combat through empowerment, but that'll come later. Regardless, the sheet provided should automatically restrict down your stats accordingly for combat. After assigning and confirming your stat spread, it's time to choose skills. These are unique ways of augmenting your combat abilities and are split into two types. The first is passive skills. These are always on and usually enable or change certain capabilities your fixer has. The other type of skill is active skills. These must be declared for their effects to take place during combat. You can only use so many active skills in a turn. Plus, be careful to balance the amount of active and passive skills you have with your character. Class skills are almost always active unless stated otherwise. Note, your class skills are free and with the sheet's automation will show up as you increase your grade. As for now, you are to pick 2 skills from the list to add to your character sheet. As long as you type them word for word in the green section of the sheet like so, it should fetch the skill description for you. Once you've completed this step, it's time to move on to one of the most important steps, setting up your grid. The grid represents the equipment your fixer has equipped on their person. It provides additional actions in combat called links, the occasional skill or unique capability, and plenty of stats. Grade 9 fixers start with 4 grid slots unlocked, with additional slots being unlocked as you rise through the ranks. Since we're starting dirt poor at the bottom, we are only allowed to select canard gear to fill up our grids for starting gear. While we're here, go scroll down the grid pieces and pick out 4 entries to add to your sheet. Do note there's some class exclusive ones to your association, and you cannot take gear from other associations accordingly. In addition, there are special stat boosting grid pieces called augments. You can only take augments up to your augment limits, which is dictated by your grade. As you rise up the ranks, you'll be able to fill your grid with more augments over time. However, there is actually no restrictions on equipping gear in this TTRPG outside of the class exclusive pieces. If you somehow manage to find Star of the City level gear lying around, you can equip it to your grid and utilize it pretty consequence free, at least so long as the previous owners aren't now out to get you. Anyhow, like with skills, the provided character sheet has a fair bit of automation in this regard. If you type the name of the grid piece in the middle blue field, it'll automatically fetch the gear from our database and pull its effects into the cell below, saving you the time and effort of needing to write it all down yourself, or otherwise copy paste. With that, we can move on to the final step of making your character, at least so far as this sheet is made for. Selecting your personal trump card. This is a card from the Major Arcana that your character will gain special benefits from while performing a check or empowering links during combat. Essentially, if this card pops up during gameplay, it is a super critical. Unlike other trump cards, it doesn't get incinerated so long as you are the one making use of it. The card will still be incinerated if another party member does use it, without it also being their personal trump card. There are 22 Major Arcana cards, and it is recommended to coordinate with your party as to avoid overlapping or same card selected. Anyhow, picking your trump card can be done in a few ways. First is to let the dealer shuffle the deck and give you the first trump card they manage to draw. Second is to just pick one that resonates with your character or yourself the most. Once that's done, that's realistically all you needed to have a functioning character sheet gameplay-wise. Congratulations, you are now logically done with character creation. However, if you'd like to go a step further, I would recommend writing a short backstory to inform how you got here and any connections you may have to characters in your past. This lets your dealer pull from your backstory for a more immersive narrative experience and plot hooks as required. I will say, anything that you put in your backstory is less a weapon for you to make use of and more a blade for the dealer to stab you with when the time calls upon it. Ensure that you are okay with your backstory being used against you, rather than to gain additional benefits. When making a character's backstory, I recommend having a few things in it. First, give them something of an origin story, a where they're coming from kind of affair. Are they from the ports and boats of U-Corp's lakes? Were they once in administration in the faraway V or X-Corp even? Was this life just not the one they were after? What brought them onto the path of being a junior grade 9 fixer? Where is their starting line essentially? How have they come to join one of the major fixer associations, and what sparked them to do so? More than that, outline their behavior. How would they usually respond to social interaction? Are they a go-getter, always up for the challenge? Or are they the more reserved sort that prefers people to take the initiative? Regardless of their behavioral traits, write what you think counts as a self-introduction for them. How would they break the ice if forced to? Would they give their name, a few likes and dislikes, perhaps even a notable talent or a skill they can do. The world's your oyster when it comes to making your own character. Beyond there, consider keeping a list of characteristics and quirks, things you or the dealer can look at to flavor your actions and color your reasoning behind specific actions. This will help you stay in character and keep things consistent, leading to a more engaging experience while playing the game. From there, go ahead and outline some connections in your past. These are the main things your dealer will use to stab you if nothing else was provided. These can be connections like old teachers, former bosses, childhood friends, rivals, dead parents, anything and anyone that had a tangible impact upon your character can be listed here. Give the dealer ammunition to throw right back at you during play. While not every bullet will be used by the dealer, expect at least a few to be utilized by any competent dealer. With your backstory in mind, there's actually one last optional step to do before starting. Now that you've established some connections and whatnot, you could mess around with proficiencies. These are small linear skill trees that grant you extra benefits in combat, acting as fighting styles and learned experience from continued use of specific techniques. You start with only your Fixer Association skill tree locked into your sheet, but you can fill out the rest of the free slots as you see fit from the list, all starting at rank E. My recommendation would be to use your list of connections to inform what you pick here for proficiencies. For example, if you had ties to the blade lineage at some point, you could just slot the proficiency tree there for good measure. It won't have any initial effects, but if you level the tree over time, you can gain a whole host of unique benefits flavored specifically towards that organization. You'll get the points to upgrade those trees through either excellent roleplay to your class or Trump's meaning, or otherwise through unique little goals set by the proficiency trees themselves. Regardless, this is where you can add quite a lot of flavor as necessary. Beyond there, you've done more than what's necessary at this point. What more is there to do? Well, you can always make the sheet more pretty. At the moment, it is just a plain Excel spreadsheet, but since it is just a plain Excel spreadsheet, it is incredibly modular and can be yassified to your preferred looks rather easily. Here are some sheets from the playtest that have been modified while keeping all the functionalities intact. Make sure before you edit or move around cells that it isn't important for something else. If there's a formula in there or it's otherwise a locked cell, I would not recommend touching that when customizing your sheet. And there you go for this week. That wraps up Developer Diary 2 on character customization in a certain fixer's urban nightmare. If you're enjoying this look into our Project Moon TTRPG, consider liking the video and subscribing to see subsequent updates. These will be weekly on Sundays. If you want to go above and beyond, you can donate directly to the original TTRPG this is based off of through my Ko-Fi in the comments. Aside from that, go join up with the Discord and come chat in the TTRPG channel. We'd love to hear your feedback and see what kinds of characters you've managed to come up with. I look forward to seeing all of your grade 9s and getting fresh eyes on the project to see what gets messed around with. Essentially, all player data is absolutely welcome. Tune in next week when we start on the real meat of things the combats, where a lot more of the characters' sheets, calculators, and functions will start to shine and make sense. Thanks once again for tuning in. Special thanks to my patrons Artie and Derp. Appreciate it.